The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus summoned the crowd again and said to them, "Hear me, all of you, and understand. Nothing that enters one from outside can defile that person, but the things that come out from within are what defile." When he got home away from the crowd, his disciples questioned him about the parable. He said to them, "Are even you likewise without understanding? Do you not realize that everything that goes into a person from outside cannot defile, since it enters not the heart, but the stomach, and passes out into the stream? Thus he declared all foods clean. But what comes out of a person, that is what defiles. From within people, from their hearts, come evil thoughts, unchastity, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, licentiousness, envy, blasphemy, arrogance, folly. All these evils come from within, and they defile. We have to understand this passage in St. Mark's Gospel for its importance in the Jewish faith, which comes from their traditions, their religious traditions, that are codified to a great extent in the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which is called the Pentateuch, the 5 scrolls, and especially in the books of Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Over the centuries, these customs, religious customs, penetrated and permeated into all areas of the daily life of an Orthodox Jew. So much so that the stipulations of the Mosaic Law, beyond the 10 Commandments, also included these stipulations, these statutes, these commandments. 613 of them. And they controlled every part of human life, what you could eat and what you couldn't eat, and how the food was to be prepared. All this was put down in paper and considered coming from God himself. Therefore, if you didn't follow all these stipulations, then you were committing sin. You were unfaithful to the covenant with God. But Jesus comes along and tells us something different. And St. Paul, in his epistle to the Romans, also codifies this principle of Jesus. He said, "The fulfillment of the law is in love." So all the stipulations, the statutes, have to be subordinated to how we relate to one another. Are we trying to build a civilization of life and love? Or are we trying to form our self-centered culture, which is motivated by hatred, greed, ignorance, violence, misery, ultimately leading to death. This is the message that Jesus is trying to tell us, and he is doing that in his own life, where Jesus came to tell us how we can live our lives in harmony with one another, loving forgiveness, in other-centeredness. This is his main message, especially during his public life, when he showed this sympathy, as we found in the passage last Monday with regard to the sick. He had a sympathetic heart for each one. But more, as we will find in Jesus' own life, he will put into practice what he preached. And this is what happened when he fell into the clutches of those who were practicing the culture of ignorance, hatred, self-centered greed, misery, violence, and death during his passion and death. This is the message that Jesus said. He said, my kingdom is not of this world, and he would not use violence even to protect himself from being tortured to death on the cross. But more than that, he went to the heart of the matter in the way we can only really promote the civilization of life and love, and change the culture of corruption, greed, violence, hatred, and death. He did this by loving forgiveness. In St. Luke's Gospel, from the cross, he said to his Father, Father, forgive them. They do not realize what they are doing. Now, can you imagine in your own life, your own imagination, suffering as Jesus was suffering on the cross, and seeing people gloat over him, take pleasure and make fun of him as he's dying in agony? And in response to that affliction, that hatred, Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they do not realize what they are doing. In saying this, of course, he is putting into practice what he preached in his public life, where he says you must love your enemies and do good to those who harm you. It's all right to say that, but the great message of Jesus was he put his principles, his law of love, into practice. And therefore, that law of love, which he embodied and symbolized, takes the place of the 613 statutes of the Mosaic Law. It does not mean that we don't keep the 10 Commandments, but we keep them not just in justice, not just afraid of punishment from God, but we keep them from the motivation that we love others as Jesus loves us.